Everybody, my name is Amol Patel. You're watching the Smoking Hot Coffee Show, where every day, Monday through Friday, at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we talk to startup founders and people in the startup world. I'm joined with...
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Pelton down here in San Diego.
And today we've got Brendan Schwartz from Wistia.com. You may have seen Wistia around the web. They serve a ton of video on people's sites or embeddable on other pages within their own sort of branding and their own player. Obviously, YouTube is the big gorilla in the video space, but Wistia has carved out a very successful, profitable business in the video space. So Jeff, briefly tell us about Wistia.
Yeah, Wistia is a beautiful, what you might call like a white label video hosting platform where you pay for the hosting and therefore you get it branded as your own business. You can kind of pick the colors and a lot of the text and visuals around it. Plus, we get to see some of the features that are really helpful. Like at the end of the video, you can add a call to action. You can get people to sign up for your newsletter, and a few features that are really useful for businesses that sticks right in their embed code and is really easy for them to manage.
Yeah, and so
compared to YouTube or Vimeo or others where you might not have as much control or the features that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff just hit upon the big key point here that Wistia is able to build a business out of. I think they've got 23 employees now, so they've got a pretty decent sized team. They're doing well from what we've gathered, and clearly, you know, as a startup or as a founder or as an entrepreneur, you're thinking, why would I want to build a video startup, or why would I want to get into the video space? Wistia is proving that even though Google is the big gorilla, you can still carve out room in even a large space like video. And in terms of why you would want to even use Wistia, it's very easy to use YouTube and to host your content there and to embed your video on your site, with the YouTube branding. That's super easy. But as soon as the person has clicked over to YouTube, the likelihood of them coming back and the likelihood of them spending time on your site starts to greatly diminish. Jeff, as you know, once the people leave your site, good luck, right?
Yeah, we actually talked to a company recently, TV Page, that solves this exact problem for YouTube content, which is that once they're in YouTube, they're in the YouTube channel guide now, which means they're going to go discover they're going to go get distracted by something else.
Absolutely, and that's what the internet is, one big distraction a lot of times. So when you're trying to keep people on your site, when you're trying to sell them something, when you're trying to get them to sign up for something, it's great to have Wistia as an option so that they stay there and they follow the CTAs and actually get your customers through the funnel. And so with that, I think you're going to learn a ton of stuff from this interview. We talked to him about the early days and what it took to get started. He talked about him and his co-founder living in a house of 10 guys, living off of ramen and finding their early funding, how they got that.
Exciting times.
How they got their funding, yeah. And this is during that year when the financial collapse happened, and it's amazing that they were able to build an enterprise and still have it going after all these years.
It's a great story.
With these big giants around there. So definitely look into Wistia if you're looking for video on your site. And if you want to support us, please send us an email at info@smokinghotcoffee.com and subscribe to us from our many channels. Jeff?
Yep, please do. Go to YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you like to consume our content. We're there. And please let us know how we're doing and if there's any guests you would like us to have on the show.
Great. And so with that, let's cut to our interview. All right, Brendan, thanks so much for coming on our show today. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
of course.
So I've been following Wistia on the sidelines for a few years now. You guys, Blip, a bunch of other, video hosting sites out there. You guys have made it through. I mean, so many of these guys couldn't afford the hosting bills. Tell us about the early days. Tell us about the germ of the idea, why you decided to do this. How do you feel about YouTube, Google, all that kind of thing?
Sure. You want the long story or the short story?
How about the medium story?
The medium story? Okay. So we have been at this for a lot longer than most people think. I don't know. Whenever I meet someone, they I've heard of Wistia. I was like, how long have you guys been around? So we've been around for 7 years.
7 years.
It started in this house actually that I still live in with my best friend from college, Chris. It was just the two of us. We were very young and delusional, I think, at the time. We knew we wanted to start a business.
Right.
It was around the time that YouTube was starting. and we knew there was like a fundamental shift in video, and we wanted to be a part of that. He was doing, he was in the film world. He was an independent film producer and doing a lot of editing work. I was working in software. I was always very interested in video, and we were searching for this idea. Finally, we came across this thing that we thought was the greatest idea in the world. It was not the greatest idea in the world, but we were convinced at the time to do that. I quit my job. He turned off his freelancing.
Wait, what was this idea?
This idea was to build a competition website for filmmakers. So big brands would say, like, we needed a commercial for blah, blah, blah. And all these filmmakers would work on this idea, submit these things. So the brand would get buzz from doing this. They get a lot of interesting creative submissions. That would definitely make a young filmmaker's, it could be a career break for somebody.
Right.
And we thought that was really interesting. We were not the two people to do that. We realized that we'd have to sell this to big brands of which we had no connection at all.
Okay.
We had no idea what marketing was. We just thought if you build it, people come. Then we quickly realized the scope of this project was just huge.
Gotcha. So are we talking 7 months, a year in? What are we looking
This
at?
was a few weeks in.
Oh, a few
so
weeks
in.
Okay,
a few weeks
That's
in,
good.
we're just talking about this, and we're like, oh my God, this is just a crazy amount.
Did you send out a few emails to
Learn quickly.
BBDO and a couple of ad agencies and
We
realize
didn't even get. We didn't get that
You
far.
didn't get that
We
far,
were
okay.
just excited to be.
All right, that's cool. You want to build
starting.
something. You're like, this is a cool idea,
Yeah.
crowdsourcing videos. All right, I get it.
Exactly. So we came up with this product spec sheet a mile long, and they were like, this just isn't going to work. We don't want to do this. So
That's awesome.
we talked ourselves
This is
out of
obviously
idea.
pre-MVP and Eric Ries and all that, obviously.
Yeah.
Way before that.
So we ended up launching a portfolio website for artists, specifically for filmmakers, which was in a way pretty similar to what Vimeo became. But again, we were not the right people to do this. We built a great product. We had maybe 100 or 200 people using it who really liked it, but we did not know what marketing was. We had no idea how hard it would be to do this. We launched this thing in I think January of 2007. Got some people using it. They were excited. Then we had meager savings at that time that we were bootstrapping off of. We were running out of money, and we were like, wait a second, artists have no money. How are we going to make money to continue to do this?
Right.
Seems like a very obvious idea that many of our friends told us many times. They're like, oh, no. That's don't worry about that. We'll figure that out.
Gotcha. So you were paying for the hosting and all of that, the streaming and all of it.
Yes, which is also a funny story in that was when we started this thing, we were like, okay, video hosting, this is going to be really expensive. And bandwidth was super expensive. I remember calling and getting quotes from Akamai, and it was $5 a gigabyte with a minimum of $500 a month. That's a lot of money for two dudes
Two guys,
in a
yeah.
house. We can barely survive.
Yeah.
And we got this contract with a CDN that was starting up, and they got really excited about what we were doing. And I think that they thought, we didn't really mislead them, but they thought we were going to do tons and tons of traffic. And so he's like, the sales guy's like, I can't wait till you turn this thing on. It's going to be amazing. I think our price for bandwidth was maybe 50 cents or something like that, which was crazy low. We were so excited to get that price.
Yeah.
We were also nervous that this was going to bankrupt us, because once we launched this product, we just thought there are going to be 1 million people who are going to show up, and that would be that. So we launched this thing. Our first bill, we didn't even do a gigabyte of bandwidth for the video the first month. Our first bill was 26 cents or something. And we're like, hey, where do we send the money to? He's like, don't even, oh my God, I can't believe you guys.
That's awesome.
Uh,
what
so
was the
yeah, it is
CDN?
expensive.
I'm just curious. Who was the CDN?
That was a CDN called Panther Networks.
Okay, Panther. I remember
which
these
was then
guys.
bought. Yeah, they were in New York, started by the old DoubleClick guys. I think Dwight Merriman, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, started it, who now does MongoDB.
Oh, wow.
But they got bought by CD Networks. So it was smart business for them. 7 years later, our bill is a lot more than 26 cents a month.
Right.
So
you're still with them
Oh,
today?
yeah. So you're still with them then, I guess, with the acquisitions and all
We
that.
use CD Networks, and a few other guys as well.
Oh, very cool.
But it has slowly grown over the
No,
years.
that's so
video
great.
hosting-
This is a great example of really this business relationship, and it's still held on after all of these years. So many more CDNs in the mix these days.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
So we So we were doing that thing. We were quickly realizing this was not going to make us any money. It was around that time that another friend of ours who was kind of involved in what we were doing and had watched what we had done said, hey, he worked at a medical device startup. They were doing clinical trials in South America and Europe, and they had all this video that they needed to share. And so they were FedExing DVDs. But you can't even overnight a DVD from South America to their office in Watertown, Massachusetts. It's like a 2-day process, and it's expensive.
Gotcha.
And so they had this huge problem around it, and they're like, you guys are good with video, and he had seen the product. He's like, can we just have like a version of this to do what we want to do? And we're like, no, no, man, we're for artists. Like, get out of here. Like, we're true to our artist spirit. Like, please. Okay. Then we got to thinking more about it. Also running out of money, and it became clear that like the problem that he was talking about, which is like around kind of private secure video sharing, was like really related to another idea that all these filmmakers had asked us about, which is we had this public website where they could show off their work, but there was no way for them to collaborate with each other on projects that they were working on. Right. So that was like kind of when the light bulb went off, and we're like, okay, we could make something that would be used by all these different industries. Mm-hmm. We went in to talk to the guys that he worked with. They got excited about what we were doing. They asked us like what the price was for this, and they were expecting that we were going to do like a consulting agreement where we'd build this thing out, and we obviously had no idea what we were doing at all. We knew that we wanted to like sell it as a product, like a software as a service thing. Right. So we came up with pricing. I'm sure it was probably based on, we went to 37 Signals, like looked at Basecamp and like, wrote something down on a piece of paper. I think we had like 3 plans, like a $99 a month, gotcha. Like $199, $299, something like that. Right. We like slid it across the table. Like they look at it, like laughed at us, and we're like, okay, we'll just take the most expensive. We don't know what any of these mean, but are you serious that you only want to charge this much money? We're like, yeah, like this sounds good. So we built a prototype, launched it with them as a paying customer. That was August of 2007, I believe, or 2006. No, 2007. And that was amazing. Like, made our first dollar doing that, and then like quickly got like a few other people on board, like some filmmaking friends who like had seen us make the product and were really excited to use it. And so that was the start. So we only did private video sharing back then.
So I just wanna cap all this, Jeff, real quick here. So this idea of like going after the artist, staying true to your sort of original ethos, which is we're trying to do this thing for artists and for creators out there. Then you started getting these responses from other people in other industries, other sectors. Then of course topped by this like we're losing money, we got to figure out a way to make this work. So it's this sort of weird, windy road that most entrepreneurs find themselves on, where you want to go one way, and then 3 weeks later you're like, oh shit, we're running out of gas. We got to go over here instead because this other guy is asking us to come over here. And I'm hearing quite a bit of that, and I'm assuming it kept on going for all these years, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a balance between, listening to what people want and then kind of deciding what it was that we wanted. I mean, because it also there was pressure from those guys early on to just say, hey, just like contract and build this, you'll make way more money. We can get exactly what we want, because they had all these weird ideas for features and stuff. Sure. And we were pretty like set in our ways about we wanted to make a very kind of generic, useful product across different industries, not something just for like medical device startups.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
What did the product look like right before that then? Before the medical guys got involved and kind of opened up a revelation for you, a different use case, what was the messaging in the product? And you said you weren't getting a lot of traction or bandwidth used, but what was the pricing and such?
Oh, it didn't exist. It was the portfolio website for artists. Okay. So it was like this website where you could just sign up for free and like put up videos and like photographs basically. Gotcha. There's no pricing because it didn't cost any money. Uh-huh. And the only thing that we did right before that is in building that website, a lot of the technology we reused. So like the video encoding piece, which is now, more or less a solved problem with things like encoding.com and Zencoder, if you guys are familiar with those.
Yep.
Those didn't exist back then. And we had kind of built that from scratch when we built this portfolio website, and that was like a huge pain in the ass. It was a ton of work. We like did it one way, and we're like, if we were doing this again, we'd really like make it into its own platform, and that would be amazing. So we had already set out doing that, which was hugely helpful. That's what allowed us to build like the first version of Wistia in literally 2 weeks, because we had that other thing that we had spent, you know, a year or more building.
Right. Wow, I'm really so impressed that you guys it sounds like you bootstrapped most of this in the early days.
That was full bootstrapping, partially subsidized by. So that house there were 10 of us living there. Well, everyone had a job and was working. Chris and I were at home eating everyone else's food. So Wistia is definitely partially subsidized by all those roommates. Yeah, we definitely lived on the cheap.
I love it. I love it,
Nice.
man. I think there's a whole crop and there's a whole new wave of guys doing it now. You know, you guys are kind of a little bit up the hill. There's a whole bunch of guys at the bottom, you know, living in that 10-person house. I think, you know, I'm getting that sense these days. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. It's really cool that you can start a software company for such a small amount of capital. I don't know. It's really mind-blowing, and I think, I don't know, that kind of like going through that process in the beginning, I think it was like very like formative, like for us in how we think about things today. And like, you know, like most startups are scrappy and stuff, and like to be able to really have lived that and have like no money whatsoever, and
Right.
I don't know, it just makes you think differently about things, I think, and really I mean, everyone appreciates all the customers that they have, but
Right.
it's if you can't feed yourself because you're
You got rent
That's
to
a
pay.
perspective on things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Do you think people today could use the same tactic you did with finding the early CDN partner, someone who was also a startup maybe at the time, and find an ideal partnership like that really helped you reduce your costs? I mean, do you think that's something that entrepreneurs today can still be looking at? Or is
Yeah,
it
I think so. For sure. I mean, like now that we're a little bit bigger, we're kind of in a position to be that for some other companies. I mean, there's a few companies that use us more or less as infrastructure for video, which isn't like the core thing that we do, but it certainly works well to do that. And I don't know. I mean, because we're entrepreneurs and have been there, it's, you know, we're happy to like give it to people for free to do that, or for like low cost basically.
Right.
Whereas that stuff, you know, through other providers might cost a lot of money.
That's awesome.
Or I mean, anybody really. Like and we still do it. For instance, like I can plug another company that has been an amazing vendor for us, which is a company called Fastly, out of San Francisco. They're also CDN, but we were one of their first customers, and because we knew somebody who worked there, and we knew they were building this thing, and we really needed a very specific type of CDN for what we were doing. They have a feature, I don't know if you guys are tech guys, but you can instantly purge any asset on the CDN. Other CDNs, it might take 1 to 5 minutes or something like that, or it's just not a known amount of time. And with our video embeds, kind of like what I was talking right before the show about how you can make an adjustment and see that right on your website, like that needs to be instantaneous. Right. So they were building this thing. We were an early customer. It was incredibly helpful, I think, for both of us. I mean, and it's often like not even from like the cash side, but like the support and the being able to influence the product and really like help build the thing with somebody.
Right.
It's also fun, I think.
Yeah, I think that's crucial to find those partners that really help support you, like you said, not just monetarily, but with your objectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're helping them highlight, the features that they have that other CDNs don't.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a win-win.
It's a good use case for them, yeah.
I love it when the young startups are helped by some guys that are a little bit further along. I love that. I love that a lot. So, Brendan, we're talking here 2007, 2008, 2009-ish. You guys start to feel like, okay, Wistia is starting to form. When did Wistia actually happen? Like, and then what was some of the early successes?
The big breaks for us?
Yeah, big breaks.
I'd say one. I'd say there were a bunch. One big one, like from a product perspective, is when so I mentioned that we were just private video sharing at first. And part of that was a reaction to like really almost running out of money and really being like, we love being in business for ourselves. We love doing this. This is really fun. How can we like continue to do this forever? Right. And so the private video sharing thing, like you reference like Blip and all these, and like YouTube, and around that time, because like YouTube and video was so hot, there was just like money being funneled into this space. Right. And there were like 1 million like YouTube like fast followers. And we were like, we want nothing to do with that. Like that sounds really scary. Those people are like so good at business and just amazing. Like we just want to hide in our tiny little niche and like no one come find us, and like we can make a few dollars and like survive over here. That's cool. And that was, for us, was private video sharing. Okay. And then like a year and a half later, maybe like after Wistia was like going in this private video sharing world, we had all these customers who were like, can we please embed this video on our website? And again, we were just like, no. Like, no, we're not getting into that. Like, it's too scary. Like, just, it's private only. Just use YouTube. Like, that's great product. Like, or use Vimeo. Like, that's amazing. Just please, like, use that. Right. And they're like, no, but like, we really like you guys. And like, we had these analytics. I don't know if you've seen, like, so you can see how people are engaging with your video second by second, like where people are leaving, or if they're skipping ahead or watching. Like, we really would like that for like our marketers would love that. Like, please do this. And so very reluctantly, and obviously when you have so few customers, like, you know, you have to kind of bend to their whims a little bit. So we're like, we're not going to add this to the product, but like, because you want it, we will embed you an embed code, because we have this like ability, you know, we had it on our site, we can put it on their site. So Ben would like craft these embed codes by hand and email them out to customers. And eventually it just got to be like, he was just doing this every day, and he was like, I'm so like, can we just add this to the product already? And we're like,
that's awesome.
Well, I suppose we should do that. And that was like a real turning point for us. So that's when we started doing kind of the public side of stuff. It was reluctantly, but really from like customer demand. And once we had that and started marketing it a little bit, we started getting a lot more customers, or a lot. I mean, it was still on a small scale, but a lot for us.
Wow. That's great. I imagine I imagine you had the Powered by Wistia on there, and a lot of inbound through that. And
we didn't have that, actually. I mean, it was all like very white label, you know, because it's a paid for service. So it was, I mean, if you right click the player, I suppose you can figure out, if you're savvy, you can figure out it's Wistia. And now we have a free plan, and if you use that, there's a little, like if you're not playing the video, there's a little like bar at the top that says Powered by Wistia, which certainly like drives some awareness of the product. But it's not, that's like also, I mean, you were asking about like the differences between like us and YouTube. I mean, people pay for Wistia, and like our mission is like, stay out of the way, right? It's your brand, it's on your website. Like, we don't want to be there, which is difficult. I mean, that's like, yeah, we're missing out on obviously like that kind of like viral growth aspect, where you see a player somewhere and you go, oh, that's Wistia, okay, what is this thing? I need to check this out.
Right.
Yeah, like for instance, you guys don't have like a catalog on your website where I can just go browse videos and look for funny cat clips.
Right.
No, we do not have that.
Right.
Wow. All right. So, can you share some of the other big growth breaks in the early days? Obviously, making it embeddable. Any others notable ones come to mind?
I'd say there was something that wasn't a big break for us, but a big, like a very formative experience, which is kind of funny. Which is, so we had been like, you know, slogging away at this like portfolio website for artists before we started, you know, doing the Wistia thing and launching that and having like a few paid customers. And right after we did that, things like went kind of like gangbusters for us. Like, we would talk to people and they would like get what we were doing, and they were really excited. And we very soon after we did that, like maybe like a month or two, through this like series of events of like networking and stuff, we were in front of the head of production for HBO to be like a solution for their digital dailies problem. So like in the film world, like all the stuff you shoot that day, those are the dailies. You send that out to the producers of the show who review it, you know, provide feedback and all that stuff. Wow. And they had this problem that they called the Tom Hanks problem, where Tom Hanks would be in his castle in Ireland, okay, and they'd have like band of brothers or whatever that they had shot, and like they'd take some kid, they'd give the DVD to him, he'd get on a plane, fly from LA to Ireland, like, you know, walk over to his castle and say, here, Mr. Hanks, like, here's your DVD. So obviously that's incredibly costly, but it's also just hugely inefficient. So they knew that, and they were like, we want a way to do this digitally, and by some, you know, freak occurrence, we were like in the running for this thing. Wow. And not only that, they really liked the product and its simplicity, and it was like crazy. I mean, we're huge like HBO fans. We're both like really into like film and TV, and like they're uploading like these like Sopranos like outtakes and stuff like into Wistia, and we're like, people are like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is amazing. And so the funny thing that happened was like, that sounds great and awesome, but there were like two very funny things about it. The relationship was there was this talent agent involved who and I know so little about like the way Hollywood works. This is like my only like kind of like view into it, but like a talent agent is like a broker between like talent and like a, you know, company producing something. So like they control that relationship, and like that's kind of the value that they add in like helping work that thing. Right. It was really hard for us because to like build a product, you really need to be like talking to the customer directly and stuff. Yeah. And so anytime we were talking with HBO, they would kind of be involved in this thing. And it was really hard to kind of like make progress out figuring out exactly what they needed. Right. Like it would always be, it's like the game of telephone. Yeah. So that was one thing. And the other thing is they really wanted an on-premise solution. And obviously this stuff is all in the cloud, and that's like, we're comfortable building it and delivering it that way so you can fix bugs quickly. Like that's just the way that we worked, and we knew if we did that, it would not be good for us. But at the same time, like obviously, like that would be like a business making deal for us if we had gotten that deal. Right. Like that might have been, you know, hundreds of thousands or like low million like a year when we were making about, you know, $1,000 a year at that point. Wow. And we would tell people about like, because it was serious. Like we flew out there for a meeting, like things were progressing, and we just like we thought really hard about it, and we ended up just walking away from the deal because the demands were too high, and we just it was really hard to do because it was just such a shiny good thing, and everyone was like, "You guys need to do. You're crazy. Like, what are you? Why would you do that?" And we're like, and you know, we had good reasons for it, and that was like the first time I think that we like really kind of like learned to trust our instincts about this stuff. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of things that felt wrong about it, and now looking back, it was clear that they were all wrong. But also, like we were really young, and we were like, oh, this is how business is done. Like, this is how you do business. Okay, like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure, whatever. Like, right.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's the second time you basically came up against that challenge and decided to stick with your guns and stick with the software as a service, like web model, rather than going with the enterprise, consulting, high-paid gig.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and in retrospect, like I like to think that it was like super easy, and we were like, oh yeah, of course we're gonna do this, like. Ta-da! Like, but it was like some long circuitous, like, you know, we'd like one day we'd be like, yes, this makes perfect sense. Of course we'll do like an on-premise solution. This will be awesome. Like, we'll fly out to LA and we'll like program the computer. Right. And we're like, dude, we can't do this. I'm just very emotional.
No, it's got to be rough, especially for your partner being a filmmaker. HBO is obviously so well known in that space for premium video, cable, and all that. So, all right, cool. So, you guys stick to your guns. At what point did you realize, okay, this is really working? When did you start hiring? What was some of those early days looking like? And how'd that happen? How'd you guys get all these customers?
That's a good question. So, around the time, I guess we're just going through the long story here, but that's fine. Sure. In the around the time of HBO and that time, we met two guys, Ben and Adam. Ben was like a really sharp, like technical guy who had like a ton of just broad-ranging expertise. Who had like started and sold a software company himself, and was like at another company that was kind of winding down. We really liked him. We worked well together. We also met this guy Adam, who had been doing like software sales for his entire career basically, and was like a guru of this. And we were two, 20 2-year-olds or something who like knew barely anything, but were like somehow managed to be like pretty good at building product and like software stuff. I had like reasonable instincts about like, things occasionally. So we were like really psyched to work with these guys, but they were older. In order for them to work with us, like, you know, we didn't even have a salary. We were like at this point just paying for like our office, which was like half of my bedroom,
right.
like, and maybe like $30 in food per week for the two of us. So we were ramen profitable, or less than ramen profitable.
Right.
And we like did some soul searching and decided that like we did want to grow this business and want to grow it faster. And we like started networking and raised an angel round to be able to like bring those two guys on and like get us, you know, small modest office.
Hold on one second here, Brendan. So you said you started networking and then you raised an angel round. There's a lot.
Yeah, it just happened. Yeah, isn't that how it works?
There's a lot there.
We just networked into a bank account, and then like that money came to it. No.
All right. We'd like to try to keep these videos tactical. In your opinion, would you say when you said networking, did you go to like meetups? Did you start calling did you start cold emailing other startups in your area?
Well, it was we already had been, I suppose, like doing a lot of like networking because we had been going for a year. You know, we had like been doing like other stuff, but people kind of knew us like around Boston a little bit, like as like the video guy. We were doing stuff in video. Cool. It was really like the crux of it was that, I mean, Ben and Adam were a lot more connected than we were.
Got you.
Ben introduced us to a guy who became our lead investor. Okay. We had conversations with him. He had done a fair amount of angel investing himself and kind of knew that well. He's also just an incredibly awesome guy, and like it was really clear, like from the first time we met him, that he had our interests in mind, as opposed to just like trying to like it would have been pretty easy.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Yeah, like it would be pretty easy to have taken advantage of us at that time. I think it might still be in some regards, but like we just really got along with him, and he really got what we were doing. He used to be he was in public television like back in the day, and just like kind of got the business model, and we really got along.
And really briefly, did you show him that you guys were getting traction? Obviously, you had a product built, and you were doing the video and the hosting and all. You had the CD and all that stuff set up. Was that one of the key? Like, okay, these guys are really making progress. Yeah,
like seeing that we had customers. I mean, because we had customers who were paying us at that time. I think that was big. He, you know, he had worked with Ben at a previous startup and like knew he was the real deal. So like, you know, if he was interested, if we had gotten him interested, I think that means a lot. He'd come over to the house, seeing where we were working, seeing the product, like saw that we were really like passionate about it. I think he saw that we were kind of thinking about things the right way. Cool. But ultimately it's like taking a big leap and a big risk.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the passion and traction.
Yeah. And also we kind of asked him to be an advisor, and I think the thing that we thought we were being like super slick and like pulling over this move, and I'm sure like he just saw it coming a mile away and already had made up his mind about it. But we were like, oh, we'd really like, you know, any advisors we have, we would really like them to be investors too. Of course, we just completely made that up. We just wanted him to be an investor, and we're too afraid to ask.
Yeah, I got you. No, but that works.
And he's like, oh, of course I'll do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So how soon did he come over to the house? Did you pitch it after he saw?
It was a long, slow. Actually, it probably wasn't that long, but it felt like a long time. I mean, maybe like I think we met him in I want to say like January or something like that. We closed the round something maybe beginning of April or end of March.
Is this 2007, 2008, 2009?
This is 2008.
2008. So this
early
is
2008.
When did the financial collapse, all that stuff happen?
That was September 2008.
Okay, so this is a few months before.
That was like around when we raised our second round.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Which was a miracle in and of itself.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. So how much was that first seed? Do you remember?
I always forget exactly what it was. It's like around like 650,000.
Oh man, that's a lot of money for the ramen guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that was a crazy amount of money.
They'll let you guys expand, right? That was the goal to hire those two guys.
Yeah, so we hired those two guys and got a really shitty office out a little out west of Boston, and we're able to pay ourselves also,
Very
which
good.
was the amazing thing to have some company that was paying ourselves. Of course, we had a huge burn, or not huge. I mean, not huge in the grand scheme of things, but huge for us at that time,
Right.
which was terrifying to be starting. It felt like we were like starting over
Over
in
again.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was, actually, well, I don't know. You guys are asking about successes, but I'll just tell you about other mistakes that we made.
Yeah, please.
We had this funny thing that happened to us after we raised that money, which was we were like playing house almost, or like playing office. I don't know if that's like a term, where we had an office, and like there were like Ben and Adam were there, and we were like,
Right.
oh, we're like working in an office, like we need to be like all professional, like, and
I love that.
we
Right.
didn't even have, we raised it as a convertible debt, so we didn't even have like a board or anything like that. I don't think, actually, we were still an LLC. We didn't convert to a C Corp because it was just extra paperwork. I don't think we had to, or maybe I'm not sure. But in any case, we didn't have a formal board. But we decided that we should have these like mock board meetings,
Okay.
which was like us, Chris and I, and then like one of our investors and like another one of our investors. And we like fell into this weird trap where we were like, thought that's where we needed to make like important decisions, even though like the four of us, like me and Chris and Ben and Adam, were like working together every day, and that's really when we should have been making decisions and just like iterating like crazy.
Right.
And we almost like would wait for these meetings, and then it was mostly like a status update, and we'd have to like try to convince these other two guys like that we needed to like change course to do this thing.
Interesting.
So you felt
It was
like
a
you
huge
needed
nightmare.
You felt like you needed their buy-in because they were the investors.
Yes,
In order to
exactly.
make a decision and iterate and move in a different direction. Let's say.
Even though we didn't actually, nor would they have been like, you must check with us before you do anything. It's just
Right.
that going through that motion felt like that
Right,
was what we needed to
Right.
do.
Right. Yeah.
And then at some point, probably because the other funny thing that happened is we were getting all this traction before and through raising this angel round. We had like signed up, this GI Dynamics, which is the first paying customer, then some film production companies. We actually closed a deal with Nestle Nutrition, which Adam had closed before he even started working with us, and we were like,
Wow.
holy shit, this is the real deal. Here we go. Like, we're going to be profitable in 3 months. This is amazing. Then we closed that round, and we didn't sell anything for an entire summer. We couldn't do anything. It was
and you couldn't do
summer of
anything because
despair.
people just weren't closing, or they just weren't ready to buy. Is it?
A lot of, I think we got a little bit lucky. Like, we found like a few people who really needed it.
Okay.
We were also convinced that we needed to be selling this as like an enterprise thing, like upfront for a year. We're charging like 10 grand or something like that.
Okay.
People just didn't want to pay. It was like just not, everything was like a little bit off, right? Like, it wasn't quite right.
Right.
And it was in that summer when we were doing those like board meetings and stuff. And then suddenly we were just like, had some like revelation. We're like, what are we why are we like, we're just, because we're like losing money this whole time, right? Because we're paying ourselves, and we're like, see the bank account just like, or I don't know which way this is supposed to go, but, and we're like, we just need to make decisions and go, and like, this is just in our own hand, like, this is on us, like, there's nobody else who's gonna like help us do this, really.
Right.
So we called up those two guys and said, we're done with these board meetings, like, thank you for your time, and like, that was very nice, but like, we just need to like do this ourselves. Like, sorry, like, we have to do this. And they're like, okay, well, you should have just said that from the start. We're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, that is hilarious. Okay, cool. So now you guys are iterating fast. You're thinking on your feet. You're making moves. What were some of the early decisions? Change the pricing, change the terms. How were you able to close some deals?
Pricing was a big one. Another funny story there is, so we were selling this as an enterprise product, which we thought we had to do, because that's how we had built our Excel spreadsheets that we were going to like become profitable. They relied on this fact.
Right.
And in the like summer of doom where we couldn't sell anything, I think like the first deal that we ended up closing was either at the end of August or September or something like that. And Adam like hangs up the phone with somebody. He's like, I sold something. And I'm like, all right, like, what happened? He's like, okay, so it's $12 a month. And we're like, what? He's like, okay, like I just, I think we just need to like play around with the pricing, like try some other stuff. And he had like sold it to this guy at a like machine company in Canada, but not even for their company, for like his kids like hockey team videos or something. I don't know what it was. Like it was something crazy. He really liked the product and it was like perfect because it needed to be private and all this stuff.
Okay.
And we were just like, you are insane. Turns out that was a genius move. And that's a lot closer to where our pricing is today.
Yeah.
Than
Jeff,
the $10,000
Jeff,
like buy up front.
You literally just pulled up so that big sort of funny, crazy story, and it's still lasting. Yeah, 20, 40, 100, 200, 300. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot more in line than what we thought when that first happened. We're like, this is insane. Like, we're completely fucked. Sorry.
Please do. So that got you guys out of your shell and able to explore different pricing options.
Yeah, definitely. And then from then on, we were kind of all over the map trying different things, which was, I mean, obviously, right, that's extremely helpful to like be able to price things differently, to figure out like where you kind of fit in the market and what feels right for what you're doing.
Right.
And it was around that same time that we started doing the public video embeds and started signing on more people, kind of more at this lower price point, right? So like, somewhere between like $50 and like $200 a month, maybe, whereas some people were paying $800 a month before that.
Brendan, this is an important issue for many startups. The pricing, getting the pricing right and market fit and all that is huge. It's a huge problem. And obviously drowning in a sea of red with all the bank accounts being drained is a huge motivator. What I'm curious about, because you had a guy inside the office whose job I assume is to get on the phone or do the emailing and doing the follow-up, literally sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he came back to you and he said, listen, man, I sold something, $20, obviously we're not going to be able to afford you if you're able to sell one or two of these a day for $20. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
How did you get from that to where you're at now? Like, what was did he start calling the next day offering 40? Like, how did he even come around to the right pricing grid and all that?
Well, I mean, I suppose that in many ways, like all along this whole thing, we were just like irrationally so when we sold anything, we were just irrationally happy. Like, so we didn't always like look at it like with this like stone cold, like, all right, $12, like how many of those are we going to need to sell to like make enough money to like pay this person or pay us and survive? It was more like, oh, we sold something cool, like, okay. Which I think is the thing you need. Obviously, like most entrepreneurs are like optimistic to a fault, right? Like that's the only way you can even do anything because like,
you're right.
The world
you're right. That delusion. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess coupled with like some reality checks every once in a while, but we started like selling more of these things. We started doing like another crazy thing is that after having done kind of the portfolio website for artists and like building this like whole sign up process and stuff, we went to the opposite extreme. We were like, oh, if we get people in person or on the phone, like we can sell them stuff. Okay, amazing. Yeah. And so like the website for Wistia for like the first like 3 months, even after we had been like selling stuff to people, just said hello Wistia, like in an H1 tag. They like had no website. For the longest time, we had no way to sign up for the product itself. Like if you were interested, we'd like make an account for you, and that's the way you got started. It's obviously like super enterprise, like just it was basically like work we knew we didn't have to do, so we were just like focused on exactly what we needed to do.
Right.
We did like around that time that like this $12 a month thing happened, we had built out like a way to sign up for a trial. And I remember when I got the first like somebody had signed up who we didn't know for a trial, I was like, oh, like this is like an amazing feeling.
The God rays, right? The God rays come out of the sky. You're like, yes.
Exactly. And another, I mean, so that was a piece of it. We also like started doing like messing around with AdWords. I think one of the first like leads that came in through AdWords was actually Cirque du Soleil, who became a customer and is still a customer to this day, which is basically just like a stroke of luck. Like it was like perfect timing. They were looking for this thing, our product happened to be a good fit.
Right.
Those guys over there are super nice guys. Like they use Wistia to run their casting process basically. They have these shows all over the world, and they'll upload video of people who are trying out, send it around to the stakeholders. I mean, it's kind of like the HBO thing, I guess, but like for these live performances.
Right.
I don't know what the advice there is. That was just complete and utter luck. I like right place at the right time.
Yeah, right place at the right time. But it's also a lot of persistence in this new pricing model and AdWords. A lot of this stuff. It's the timing. It's being in the right place, right time. I don't know if I believe in accidents, but
no, certainly. I mean, we had the trial. We had the lower price. We had like these and the AdWords. Like the trial enabled the AdWords because otherwise we're gonna AdWords just to talk to us on the phone. I mean, maybe you could do that, but yeah, it all kind of like played together and was moving towards where we are today, I suppose.
Right.
Boy, man, I don't know if you can sum it up, but the video on the internet has been so important and transformative, and I don't even think we're at the end yet. I was born on the internet generation basically, and have seen like. First we had bookmarks, and we were like, cool, we can bookmark stuff, like shared links. And then it was like, okay, now we can share photos, and now we're finally sharing video. I love the examples you gave are kind of, like, I don't think you would have dreamt up the product for those use cases, the HBO and, people needing to transfer video on the back end, right? Stuff that you don't see a lot on the front end consumer level stuff. What have you seen or been surprised about, or where do you see the future of video online in general?
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because that side of it, I think, is the piece that really nobody sees, and is still something that's like really innovative organizations are doing, or people who just their business like relies on video, like a video production company, like that's like a no-brainer, right? They have to like share video for reviews and approvals. But the Cirque thing was a funny case because like I had never even, we were like living and breathing this thing, and like that wouldn't have occurred to me, like. We were constantly like, who uses a lot of video? Who uses a lot of video? Like, I would have never thought that they would be using lots of video. I mean, I agree with what you said. I feel like it's really like early days for this stuff. It's really common, like among like I'm sure the people who watch this show and like you guys and not like to go to a website and see a video describing a product. But that's even a relatively new thing, and that's also like only kind of in this like bubble. That's not every business like has that. It's still really out of reach to people. Right. I think there's a huge, just even for like the most basic, I would consider that the most basic use case of just like, what does your business do? Have a video that describes that. It's in many ways like a no-brainer nowadays. That's like
that's
a
still
sliver
a good
of
idea
stuff.
for a lot of people though. I help some friends with small businesses do their websites, and I'm always like, oh man, you should just do a YouTube video, like flip open your laptop and say what you do, and that's like a crazy idea.
Yeah,
for most people.
I think it's crazy scary to be on camera. I mean, even we were a video company, we didn't have videos with us in them because we were terrified. We wouldn't admit that, but we were terrified of being on video. We just had these like dinky screencasts, which I always like want to like, we should put them up somewhere because they're really embarrassing and just funny to like. Our videos now are I'd say pretty polished, like, and there's an amazing guy we have in house who does them, but
cool.
It was not before. It was like Chris or me with a microphone, like, and ScreenFlow, like bumping around in the product.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's terrifying to be on camera.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Do you see that changing? And I've always thought, I've been an early adopter with an iPhone, and we have these beautiful cameras in our pocket that we carry all the time with us. Do you see people becoming more used to it? We were even talking about collaboration using video all the time, and FaceTime on the iPhone. Like everyone was like, "Oh, FaceTime, this is so cool," but I don't think it gets used that much.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I have to think, like. Yes, I mean I wish I was around for when like photographs like became a thing. Like people say like people were like afraid that it would like steal your soul or something, right? Like you don't want to be on. And now it's like nobody ever thinks twice about being in a photograph, really, for the most part.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But still, video is like this weird thing. I think because it's just like it's weird to hear your voice. It's weird to see yourself on camera. I think it's happening more and more. People are getting more comfortable with it. For us, it was a big thing which I see is happening a ton, that the price of all this equipment has gone down like crazy, right, recently. there's also this other force moving it, where there's a lot of people who get started really young using, you know, like a DSLR and like learning this trade, and they can make video that's very professional for a pretty low rate. You know, what would have cost a business like $100,000 to produce something could now be done maybe for, you know, $1,000 or a few $1,000s.
Right.
And to be able to like see yourself on camera and not have to worry about that and have someone like directing you, it's like this safety net almost.
Right.
Right. You still have to pay. I mean, it's still like out of reach for some people, certainly.
Right.
But that was like what got me comfortable with it, is like I saw this guy, I'm like, I've seen your videos before. I know you kind of personally now. You're not going to make me look like a huge idiot, or like we can just like not, you know, fix that. I mean, that is what got us here over that hump. And it's funny, like with new people who, like a lot of us are on video. That's like a big thing that we do. And new people that start, you know, some people are very comfortable with it just naturally.
Right.
Other people, it takes
a little
work.
while. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can you can work with someone, you know that they're not going to make you look like an idiot, and trust that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, I think.
Interesting. No, it's cool. It's good to hear.
Yeah. So going back to the business again. You know, obviously, you guys are doing okay now. At least 7 years later, you're still around. We're still around, still ticking. You've raised, you know, I'm assuming that second round and back in 07 or 08. And so where is the company now? How many people on the team? Where do you know? What's the situation these days?
Yeah, so we've been growing. We continue to grow faster and faster. I mean, we're still very small. There's 22 of us. I think 23 is starting on Monday, and wow. 24 a week after that. But yeah, I mean, that's not a huge company by any stretch of the imagination.
Great size.
But you know,
yeah,
we're growing and having fun. It's really nice to be at the point where I feel like we've worked really hard to get to a point where we aren't gonna like run out of money, right? I guess that's profitable is what that word is, like, and we can kind of go at our own pace, which is we want to go really fast, but at the same time we can kind of like, we've earned the luxury to work slowly and do things right.
That's cool.
Which has always been our style, but like when you're staring at like about to like hit a wall, right? You could have to make certain concessions, I suppose.
Right. With all of these, you know, CDNs out there, with all these other video players out there, what do you know? If somebody came up to me tomorrow and said, "Hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing like an online video service, people can upload videos and that kind of thing," I'd think they're crazy. I think anybody trying to get into this space is crazy, even though in many ways it is early days. But it feels like all this stuff is getting commoditized. How do you come to grips with that? Like, how do you deal with like big companies like the Googles in the world and all these other large players with bigger pocketbooks, possibly playing in and maybe even stepping on some of your toes?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, our biggest competitor by far is YouTube. Like, if only because if you think online video right now, like, it's like synonymous with YouTube pretty much, right? So
yeah.
For mindshare alone we compete with them. But at least like in their case, and people like them, like I put Vimeo in this bucket a little bit, is their main customer is advertisers. And so like YouTube is a great product and I love YouTube, and you can use it very efficiently and like embed it on your website and kind of like, if you're really savvy, like turn off the comments, turn off the related videos, and like kind of make it work for you. Right. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned before, it's like it says YouTube on it. You can click on that, and you're going to go back to YouTube. And like YouTube's main business goal is to keep people on YouTube because that is where they make money from advertisers.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And a business exists to make money, not as like a charity for the most part, right? It's not like a charity to like do the world's video hosting. I don't know that anyone's like super passionate about just like hosting video for the greater good of businesses around the world.
Right.
And so it's like that's like the kernel, I think, of difference between something like us and something like YouTube. And YouTube is great. I mean, and it is free. That is amazing. and certainly there are plenty of benefits about it. But at the end of the day, the product is going to be different because of what they're optimizing for.
Right.
And like our service is all paid by business. Our only customer is businesses, and we exist to let businesses do amazing things with video, right, and help them do that.
Right. And because it serves just the creator and the business themselves, obviously they're willing to pay for that.
Right. And like, you know, the concrete things in the product that are examples of you know, being different is like, what we try to do is make it really easy to like add a call to action, add like an email collector at the end of your video that can like hook into
awesome. Brendan, this is a great segue into that screen share. If we can go really briefly into the product, because I know we've had you on for almost an hour here. I'd love if you spend some time doing that.
Sure. Let me pop over here.
Because the whole call to action is huge. I mean, you know, they've watched a couple of testimonials, bang. You know, here, buy this, you know, add your email here, that kind of thing is huge.
Yeah. So is this showing up for you?
Yep.
Yep,
Sure
we
is.
got your screen up.
All right, here's Chris, my co-founder, super red in the face. This is actually a video that we never released. It's a top secret video. Actually, I think it's on the blog somewhere. But so this is, so before the call, you guys were asking about any major product stuff that we've done, and I was saying, if you had caught us like a week ago, I would maybe be able to allude to this brand new feature, but we just launched it that we call Customize. And this is a thing that like lets you have a lot of control over how your video like looks and acts. So, you know, there's like the standard stuff, right, where you can change like the player color and all that. But you know, what we're talking about that's like a little bit more interesting is there's stuff like, you know, just really easily being able to like add, you know, social buttons and like control where that stuff links to. Like very easy to do that. Call to action. Like if you have someone's attention watching a video, like the really nice thing about video is it's a narrative, and for the most part, like, you know, someone starts at the beginning, watches to the end, you know that they received that message kind of like in that order for the most part. Unlike if you have a page of text, it's very unclear, kind of, you know, like, you know, you read top to bottom, I suppose. Yeah, you can skip through, and like there's other things on the side, and you just, you know, you can't, it's a little bit harder to tell a story. So you get someone to the end, it's a very natural thing, right, to like have a call to action, like do this thing, right, like sign up for this product.
You've really got their attention right there, a hook at the end.
Yeah,
exactly. So like this is huge for, you know, a business. Like you have a video on your front page, like that describes the product, like click here to try it, right? That's like a very natural thing to do.
Absolutely.
Another cool thing is like email collection. Like you're going to launch something, you know, or you have like gated content that maybe, you know, is like teaching something of value, being able to like almost like charge an email address, right, for the view.
Right.
Yep.
And you can hook this up like to your favorite email provider or marketing automation vendor, and have like those emails like pipe right in. You can, you know, we usually do it kind of like at the end of a video for like, you know, sign up like oh,
very nice. Updates dynamically in real time.
Yeah, and the thing, new letter, that's perfect. And the cool thing with this, so this actually was possible in Wistia before. You would configure it when you went to embed a video.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets into like the very specific stuff to deal with Wistia that, which was awesome, and you could do all this stuff. The problem was a lot of times, even like you can imagine, right? You're going to send out an email to your list or something, and you might not have a lot of resources, or you're just doing something quickly, and you just want the video on a page. You don't can't get your web developer to like add it to the website or whatever the case may be.
Right.
This new like paradigm lets you actually this is like save it like right here, and then you can share out like this link and like email this out, and it will be like fully functional. So like a marketer without the help of any, like a developer, could be like share out this video, be capturing leads, which is is a big deal, like especially for our
Oh,
audience.
it's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal, yeah. And so are those things in the embed code themselves?
Yeah, that's the other cool thing is that now, like through this model, when you go to embed like this, this code is like super short. When you put that on your website, you can come back here and say, uh-oh, like I made a mistake in my turnstile thing. Like I wrote new letter instead of newsletter, and then just save this, and then that takes place immediately, like on your website.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Very good.
And so in that embed code, I mean, I know most of the time companies are using this to sell products on their homepage, for instance, but do you see the consumers taking the embed and posting it on their Facebook page or anything like that? Or not that often?
That certainly happens.
Yeah, and so in that case, all of those embed codes that are out scattered across the web would also get these pushed updates, right?
Yes, technically with Facebook, because they're a little bit in the dark ages, they like allow like Flash only embeds. It doesn't work.
In the feed, right?
But like Twitter is a little bit more modern example. At least their APIs and whatnot. Like the Twitter card stuff. Have you guys seen that?
Yes. Yeah. I've been working. I was working with some bugs on it this morning, actually.
Yeah, that's a good example. Like when you share this, that like follows you along, like which is a pretty amazing thing. Like someone could be browsing Twitter, watch your video, and then put in their email address because they want to learn more about your company.
Right.
Yeah. I mean that's really, really powerful for people that are used to only what YouTube offers. Maybe there's annotations or some little call outs, but nothing that powerful, especially in the embed that gets carried around when people share it.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. So I mean. And sorry, just a quick, like, for us, that's a good example of something that would have been really hard for us to have done even like a year or two ago, because it is a big update, but in a lot of ways, like we had that function. It's not like adding new functionality. It's just kind of combining a few things into one and making the product a lot simpler to use. So like we feel really fortunate that we can work on stuff like that. Because like I think ultimately that's what makes a good product, but I don't know, it just takes a lot of time and kind of conviction that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys put a lot of hard work into it that we can't see. The product looks beautiful and seamless, and we've covered some other similar products for marketers. This is just hugely important, or for not to have to add development time to the product, and every time you want to make a change, go republish the embed code. Let it, giving the power to the, the copywriters and such is really useful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Brendan, we're gonna try to respect your time and end it here. Thank you so much for coming on. If there's one parting piece of advice that you'd give software guys out there looking to get their startup more visible and get out of the house and maybe in an office, what would you tell them?
General advice, or like to get your startup more visible? That's a tough. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Your story is a perfect example of just not knowing what the hell's going to happen and just a windy road.
I would say, I guess my advice would be have fun with what you're doing and just like remember that piece, because this was like. We were fortunate that like this was always really fun. Like even in the darkest moments, like it was still like a wild ride and pretty fun for us. And that's what like let us keep working on it and what keeps us still excited. And if it's not fun, you're not going to try hard. You're not going to want to keep doing it. I don't know how you make sure that it is still fun, but like just certainly kind of, I don't know. Whenever we remember that, it definitely like helps us work smarter and faster and realize that's the whole reason that we're doing it, right? Like it's not to get rich, it's not to do like that's if you can enjoy what you're doing every day, that is like the secret to life. So
that's it.
And a startup is it's a very fun thing to do. I would encourage everyone to do it.
Awesome.
We agree.
Yeah. We completely agree.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks again, Brendan. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or Wistia, what's a good general email, or your specific if you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, my email is just Brendan at Wistia, Brendan on Twitter. I'm happy to talk to anyone and everyone. So
awesome.
Hit me up.
Great.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks again, man.
Oh, look at that. If you scroll up on that, like I think I do a flip.
Oh.
On
nice.
that website. Maybe.
Idea?
Wait, like up to the no, wait, down. I don't know. Are you on a Mac? Like if you pull it, like.
Oh no, I'm on a Ubuntu
Oh.
here.
Okay.
All right. All right. Never mind.
I'll check it out over here on the other side. Beautiful website as well, BrendanSchwartz.com.
Gotcha.
All
right, well,
right.
cool.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take
Yep.
care, buddy.
Appreciate your time. See ya.
Yeah.
All right.